Hello everybody, welcome on today's demonstration of Polarion release and milestone planning capabilities. It's an internal demonstration targeted to professional services and consultants that would like to learn more about our planning features. For this demonstration, I've created a project from the system engineering project template. So most of the time I will work in a non-agile development, but I will try to clarify all the configuration options. Before we will start speaking about the actual planning features, let me just review how the requirements are being gathered in this project. So we have the system requirement specification document with um, system requirements. Let's say um, this is a system requirement 1, and here we have system requirement 2. Good, let's save it. In this project we also have the software design specification document with with software requirements. Again, there are one sample design requirement. The requirements in this project are, I call it stateless. So the requirements has no workflow associated with the actual development process. So the requirements are being written to document the actual needs, and the actual development process is driven by a different work item type. So what is this work item type? So we have the system requirements, test cases, software requirements, and then we have a work package. Work package is the entity it can be considered as a high-level task that represents a work increment. So we go to the development space. You see that out of the box we have a predefined a release 1.0. Let's click on it. So let's think about planning the initial version of this project. The plan has been already pre-created. We can start using this template. I'll show you later how to create a new plan. First, the plan is a brand new entity. It's a high-level artifact. It has a status and some properties. And similar to test run, it has the associated report. So we bind the actual properties of a plan with the report itself. Let me start set up this sample plan. So I'll set the start date and the due date. It's more or less that every plan has the beginning and the end. We don't call it an end date because it's more just not when it was finished, but it's more like when the plan should be delivered at the end. So let me say that this will be like 3 months long sprint. There's a field capacity. To understand, what is the what value you should write into this field. You see that in tooltip it says in hours or points. Let me mention this or clarify this in more details. So we have actually we are saying that the Polarion is flexible to support any kind of methodology. Because of that, we need also to provide multiple different ways how to calculate the actual progress of a plan. The time-based calculation type is typically used if the people are using the working days or working hours as the estimation schema. So if they use the fields like initial estimate, time spent, remaining estimate, they should use a time-based calculation type. We have another one, and that's called custom field based, and that's typically being used, for example, for agile projects. If we just jump to to an agile project, for example, e-library. We'll see that here the calculation type is a custom field based, and there's a field that holds the actual estimate of the user stories in Agile project. So more or less in this drop-down field, drop-down list, you will see all the fields of that has all the custom fields that has a type number, so float or integer, because this is how we can calculate the actual progress. I'll speak later about how the actual progress is being calculated. So let me go back and set up the our version 1.0. So we have created a plan, and it says that that we need to add some work items to the plan. So let me click on the link. And you see that we have no in this project we don't have any work packages. So I'll create a couple of them. Backend for feature A. UI for feature A. Something else. We already do have some. Here we have our system requirement specification document, and you can say that this work package implements the system requirement for better traceability. So what I'm saying is that you have the stateless system or software requirements that describes the actual, that provides the specification for developers, but the requirements are typically very overlapping and also very often too granular to be just planned for the release. It's much better to have a different kind of the work item that describes the actual implementation flow, and we call it a work package. So I've created several work packages, and what I can easily do is I can just select all and add them to the version 1.0. Let me save the plan. And we see that plan hasn't been started yet. It contains 3 work items. Remaining work is 0 because the work packages are not yet estimated. So let's go back to the table once again and estimate them. Before we will do it, let me also just fill in the capacity field because we forgot to fill in. So let's say we have 100 man days capacity for the release. And so let's estimate the work items. 2 days. $100 days on this one. This will be expensive, and 50 days. Let me refresh the plan. Plan hasn't been started yet. You see that it's still in the status open. You already see some statistics about remaining work, work being done, ideal progress, and total work. I think we have planned the initial release, so we have a start date, we have an end date, we have planned some work items into the to the version, you can mark it in progress. So now the release has been started. First, let me just go through the report for a while and explain some of the logic behind a plan. So as you can see, a plan has a status. You can easily just mark the plan in progress or done just by clicking on this bar. I can easily open a plan in a table view. This is very prominent action. So as I said, a plan is a high-level artifact. It contains, or it doesn't contain, but it is a sorted list of items that needs to be implemented for the in some specific context. So it's not that the work items are linking a plan. The plan contains the items that should be implemented. When I was speaking about the actual order of the elements, you can have different prioritization fields to define which is the order for the implementation. This may be useful if you want to use a different prioritization for a release and different for a sprint. You can define a multiple prioritization field and use it for prioritization. So I can easily just click, for example, this link, prioritize undone items. And by default, it opens the work items table with the prioritization panel, and I can easily just define the order just by drag and drop the items or setting the priority manually. So I can open in a table, prioritize, or I can add work items to the plan. As I said, the plan is a container. It contains the items, and you can define what are the items you want to manage in the specific plan. So for example, this release has been configured that it might contain only the work items of types work package. So if you want to add the work items to the plan, it opens the table and it shows all the work packages. If you would have a milestone, the query will be adjusted to that by default. If you open the link add work items to the plan, it will show all the items of the specific type from the parent plan. I think that's the basic concept of the release or milestone plan, and let's go now into more detailed planning. So how you can plan an iteration or how you can plan a sprint. For this, we have introduced a concept of sub plans. Actually, the plans are hierarchical, so you can have any hierarchy of the plans. So you can have the release, milestone, sprints. You can have any kind of plan hierarchy. Let me create a sprint manually. So I'll click on this plus icon. I will select the plan template, and let's say it's a iteration 31. So again, we've created a new plan. It has a version 1.0 as a parent, and it was created from a template. I will show you later where you can manage the templates. And again, we are driven through the process. We need to start the beginning and the due date of a plan. We need to set the capacity, I don't know, 10 man days. As you can see, for example, the iteration template by default. You can plant work packages, but also issues to this type of a plan. Let me save it. And we need to add an items to this plan. So again, you can click on this link or here. And as I said before, it by default the query shows all the items that are configured for the plan, plus all the items that are planned to the parent plan. We can select. Well, let's select all of them. It doesn't really matter. You can see that actually we've planned 3 items. We have planned 152 days, and actually we are exceeding a capacity. So if I save it, we have planned. Yes, so plan hasn't been started yet. It has been already estimated, so we see that currently, we have 25 days and 3 hours to be done. We have a plan board, and of course, this plan needs some more refinement. So you see, that for example, you have several work packages estimated for 100 days, 2 days, and 50 days. And in a typical process, the dev team needs to add the implementation tasks. So let me add a couple of them for 10 days and one more for 20 days. It's very important to highlight that the estimate here cannot be calculated field. That's a limitation of current planning feature, but actually it's also better from the process point of view. That very often, the team first really ensures the high level decomposition into the work packages, and then they create the actual low level tasks. So for the sake of the planning, the most important field in our process is the initial estimate and remaining estimate, and this has to be maintained by the developers and adjusted through as the tasks are being completed manually. So these 2 fields cannot be calculated from the children. So let me refresh the plan button. We see that the plan board has been adjusted. Good. So we have prepared a plan. Let me mark an iteration as in progress. Today is the 21st of May. And let me mention a couple of words about the visualization. So first, we see that we need to develop, or we have planned 3 work packages, and the estimate altogether is 152 man days. So far, there is no work being reported, no work done. And the ideal progress would be 25 days and 3 hours. That's actually by the fact that it's already an evening, my time. So the system is just reporting that today I should have already completed 25 days from the total estimate. Let me just report some time. So today, many developers were working on the features, and let's say 12 days have been tracked in the system, and the remaining estimated is 90 days. As you can see, all the data are calculated live. It's very much different to the previous implementation of the planning capabilities in Polarion. It relies on the historical database, so all the data are computed live, all the reports. Nothing needs to be calculated every hour or scheduled as an update. We see that for each day we have a relative progress. Today we have tracked 12 days of implementation. We see that yeah, 12 days were being done. Ideally, we should have yeah, implemented 25 days already, and the total work to be done is 154 days. It means that the scope of the work has increased. That's because, if you remember correctly, when I reported the 12 days, I actually adjusted also the remaining estimate by 2 days. Good. So, is there anything very special on this? I think that what we should also touch is the actual implementation of the report. It's the standard wiki plus velocity script. Very important to discuss with a potential client is if they want to have the actual report being part of a plan or externalized, so you can also include the full report definition from the external wiki script. It's not, there is no real best practice from some point of view. If you really have the plan report being part of the plan definition, then if you modify the process, if you modify the configuration, the report will stay as it is. So it's the way how to prevent possible misconfigurations. If you would have the shared report template, you modify the statuses, the report might be somehow displayed wrongly. I mean, if you open plans that have been developed, I don't know, months or years ago. So by default, we prefer a report to be part of the plan artifact, but you can easily just replace all this content with a one include statement and include all the full report from the external wiki page. Regarding the plan board, that's if you remember, it's our re-implementation of a so-called task board. And it is a fully documented wiki macro that helps you to define different columns, stages in your workflow, map workflow of the task and issues to the particular columns. Let me just show you the actual configuration. So we scroll down, we see that we have the macro called work items board. It has a parameter columns. We say that the status open should be shown as in a column open, and then status is in progress and reopen should be shown in the column in progress. One note, because it was not clear to all the users, this board primarily shows the actual low-level tasks that are related to the items being planned to the release. So the user stories itself or work packages are more just like a swim lanes that aggregates the low-level tasks. And during so this kind of visualization is very typical for a sprint or iteration, that the team is just moving the task from the left to right, and the actual work package or a user story is used more just as an aggregation. So let's face a typical scenario that the people have been reporting the progress. They, for example, reported 48 days, and actually 0 days is finished. And I would mark this story as done, or this work package. Oops. Let me fix this issue. So this one is completely done. This one will be in progress. And the last one is not started at all. So there has been a progress, but the iteration has not been finished in time. So you need to actually plan a new sprint. So let me say that this one is done, and I need to plan a new iteration. So let's plan an iteration 32. Again, let me just say that it will it has a capacity 80. This means 10 man days. And I will add items to the plan. So we see this one is already finished. I don't need to plan this one, but I want to add these two stories into the plan. And so we can also add one more package. So now, the point is that we have already reported some time on this work package 501 in the previous sprint. So if you remember, the initial estimate was 100 days. We have already reported 12 days, and the remaining estimate is 90 days. So the question is, what about this time spent from in the previous iteration, how it should be tracked in the current new iteration? So actually the time-based calculation is pretty straightforward. So you see that the work to be done is 90 days. So that's exactly what's still missing. And if we change the status to in progress, yeah, that's just more or less the fake problem that we cannot start a plan that has a start date in the future. So let me just change that. So what I'm saying is that you have the total work 92 days, but you see that there is no relative progress. How do we handle the situation? So how do we handle the situation if the work package that we have planned for some iteration was not fully done? So there was some time spent reported, and now we also planned an item in the new sprint or iteration. Simply, we have a dedicated field called previous time spent, and when you mark a plan as in progress, um, the system remembers how much of a time spent have been reported before, and we subtract this value from the actual uh, time spent being recorded. So what I mean is that if I will report additional 10 days, so altogether we have already reported 22 days, on the plan page you'll see that the 10 days has been reported. It's a very straightforward solution. It was already confirmed by a couple of customers as a nice and elegant solution how to make sure that we really just show the information that is valid in the context of this iteration. Of course, in some rare conditions and side cases, this might not produce the best result, but it's the actual problem of the planning, how to deal with the items that are planned from one plan to the other. But that's how we manage this feature now. So once again, I mean, it's actually bound to the status of the plan. When do we actually fill in this previous time spent field? I will go to administration. I will actually explain it more. So we have the plan statuses, and you see that there by default we have a couple of statuses. The first one is a default, and some of the statuses are marked as a terminal. And we consider that the plan has been started if there is a transition from a default state to the next status. So that's when this plan is considered as a started. The started on field is being filled, and we also remember this previous time spent. The same, if I mark the plan as done, the finished on field is being set. Again, I mean, we fill in we consider a task, the plan as done, if it has a status with a flag terminal. So let me just say that this one has been fully implemented now. Good, so we have finished this this work package. Now let me just check some statistics. So we have been working on two iterations. If I open the iteration, I see that there was these three users work packages has been planned for the iteration. And actually, you can see now that just 2 days are to be done. Actually, if you remember this full story for 150 days, let me mention that remaining estimate is 0 to, this is a more proper demonstration. So once again, this was the first iteration we have been working with. The system now is saying that the 2 days are to be done, and if you scroll down, we see that both these features are being green and considered as verified done. The decision has been taken, I mean, what is a plan and how to report the actual data. As I said, the plan has a start date and a due date. So you define what should be actually implemented till May 28th. And if you open a plan, it actually shows you the current status of the items that have been planned to the plan. So by default, we show the actual data. So you can see all these items that have been planned. So 2 of them are now being done, and 1 of them is still open. So this gives you the overview. What's the status of the work packages or requirements or user stories, whatever you put to the plan now. And if you want to understand better how performant the team was, you see this little panel on the top that the plan was finished on May 21st, and you can easily just open a plan from this revision. And now we show the actual status as it was when we finished the iteration. So you see that 90 days were still reported as the remaining estimate, and the 1 user story or work package has been considered as done. So once again, I mean, if the project manager wants to review how was the result of the plan in time when the plan was marked as finished, there is an easy shortcut to open the plan from the historical state. If a project manager is more interested about what's the current state of the items that have been planned for this plan, they can just review the current version of a plan. That's very important feature of the planning report. Let me speak for a minute about those calculation types. As you can see, I mean, there are 2 different visualization. First, we have the burn up chart, and for the sprint, by default, we define the burn down chart. All the data are calculated live from a historical database, and it's important to understand what are the actual data. So there are different calculation types, time-based or custom field-based. Time-based calculation is very straightforward. So for any of the plans, when we speak about the time-based calculation, or for any calculation, we measure what is the remaining work to be done, how much work has been done, what's the ideal progress, and what is the total work. The remaining work, in case of the time-based calculation, is simply a sum of remaining estimate field. So we really perform the SQL sum over all the items that have been planned for the plan. So in this case, this is 2 days. You see, a sum of the remaining estimate field. Then work being done, it's also very straightforward. It's simply a sum of a time spent field. So it should be 70 days. Yes. Then let's think about the total work. So the total work is 72 days. Total work is always just the sum of a remaining work to be done and a work done. So that's why it's 72 days. And the ideal progress is calculated based on the time progress. So we have a start and the end date. We have a total work, and we calculate the proportional progress. What should be the ideal progress up to today? So in case of time-based calculation, it's based on the initial estimate, time spent, and remaining estimate. Actually, the initial estimate field is mostly ignored because typically you have just the time spent and remaining estimate. If the user story is not estimated, there's a field called default estimate on a plan, so you can adjust how the non-estimated work packages, requirements, or user stories should be calculated in the actual plan. So that's the time-based calculation. It means that as a project manager, it cares less about the status, but more about the actual time spent remaining estimate field. As I work on the work package, I can adjust my remaining estimate of time spent. So every day I can adjust the overall estimate for the work package, and this is being reflected in the chart and this progress line. Let me go to Agile project. And let's open the iteration. Here we speak about the story points. You see, I mean, also there are numbers here. So if you open the actual work items, we see that there is no field initial estimate. More or less, we have a field estimated story points. You can set up any kind of the field like that. As I said, you can select any custom field that is of type float or integer as a estimation field. So this is three story points, this is 5 story points. So how the progress is actually being calculated in this case? Again, the same data, remaining work to be done, work done already, ideal progress, and the total work. Remaining work is a sum of a story points for all unresolved work items planned for the release. So for custom field based calculation, we care about a resolved unresolved state. That's the most typical way how to deal with estimation in agile projects. So the user stories should be simple, easy to implement, and the work is being considered done if the user story is completed. So again, remaining work is simply a sum of a story point, so this estimation field value for all the unresolved work items. Work being done is the sum of the estimate in story points for all the work items that have been marked as resolved. So if I open the plan, check all the resolved items. I see here I have and here we have story points. Okay, I thought that there is a tooltip too. So 1, 2, 16, 29, 30, 50, 63. Yes, 63 story points. So it's simply the work reporting as done is a sum of story points for all the user stories or all the items planned for this plan that are marked as resolved. Total work is simply a sum of these two values, and the ideal progress is again a proportional based on the progress in time. There are some requests to adjust the calculation. So, for example, some customers were asking, we would like to have the remaining work being somehow controlled via a time that we report on tasks. Some people would like to have some kind of the remaining work being also linked with a status. So if there is a status like specification and design, implementation, verification, if the item is in the status implemented, then the remaining work is 80% of or just 20% of the estimate in the story points, things like that. What we consider for this in the future is to provide an API to plug a different calculation logic that will return these two values. It's not yet implemented, and we definitely consider this to be developed in a midterm, so in one of the next service releases of Polarium. So again, a summary, I mean, we have just two different calculation types, time-based, using the time field, the custom field based, using any field of type number that you configure on your work items. Good. So let me go back to my initial project. Is there anything missing? Maybe yes. Maybe what about the usability? So how easy it is for me to work with the system. So I think that, I mean, a lot of the implementation has been actually configured in our templates. So here in the planning configuration, we have by default two different templates for release and for iteration. Of course, I mean, the customers can adjust the templates easily. And the templates are helps people to really perform the basic planning activities. As I already been speaking about, opening a plan in a table, adding work items to the plan, prioritizing undone items. These are all the typical use cases that people are somehow exposed to manage. The planning is also, but the planning aspect is also actually exposed on the work item form. So there is a synthetic field called plannet_in, and it shows all the plans where the item is being planned to. So I see that this item is being planned for the version 1.0, iteration 31, and iteration 32, and I can select any other iterations or plans in the drop-down list. So the one way how to add items to the plan is through the table view, as I already presented. But if you, for example, have the issue, there is also a nice way how to. Okay, so let me create one issue. Issue 1. Oh, so okay. In this project, the planning field was not configured for the issue. Anyway, you got a point. So there is this field plannet_in. it's uh, it's an it's a derived field. So as I said, the work item itself doesn't contain the information where it's being planned. So for example, the work item can be also considered as a read-only entity, and or I, as a project manager, I might be not allowed to modify the actual work item. So it's the plan itself that contains the information what is being planned for the given context. About the status, there is no workflow yet configured for or implemented for planning. It's very similar to test run statuses. So it's simply a basic enumeration of a statuses. You cannot implement or you cannot link any workflow functions and conditions. All the logic is being hard-coded in the system. We are considering to enriching the test runs and plans with the true workflow capabilities in one of the future versions of Polarion. Several macros has been implemented for the to support the new planning. Oops. Let me open it once again. The macros are quite straightforward. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time now on the actual planning capabilities. So most of the macros we implemented for the plans are the macros that are being used on the plan page, so being used here. But of course, there are also a couple of the macros that you can use on any other wiki page. For example, the list of the plans. Basically, every single macro that we expose here has an option to either being used on the plan report page. So in this case, you don't need to pass the reference to the plan, because if the macro is being used on the plan wiki page, it gets the current plan from the context. But you can also just refer to the plan ID, and you can render the burn up or burn out chart on any remote wiki page. But I mean, all the macros are pretty well documented, so we don't need to cover them now. So we have been speaking about the status and the built-in workflow when the item is plan is being started or finished. We have been touching the previous time spent field, why it's important, and how it helps to solve the typical issue when the user story or work package is not finished in time and needs to be rescheduled in the next plan. We touched the prioritization field, allow types, default estimate, the capacity field. That's more or less what's the planning function. If you have any questions, this was really not a short but a full introduction into the planning capabilities. If you have any questions, let us know, and we will schedule a session where we try to answer any of your questions.